Chapter 5 Vibrations of Reality. My beloved brother, all my beloved brothers and sisters in spirit, I'm transmitting these teachings so that you can look deeper in the reality around you, into this very reality that you find yourselves in. Nobody, not even I, can escape the vibrations of this reality, for it is of these vibrations emanated from the first source and center that reality is made up. And it is made up of the energy vibrations that are exclusively of a different frequency. Your scientists already research some of the vibrations and penetrate ever deeper into them, but they do not pose the questions, even to themselves. Why and where from are these vibrations? They begin to understand that every substance, even a material one, that is seen by the human eyes, is made up of adequate energy vibrations. They already speak of and research the diffusion of the nucleus of an atom during the nuclear reaction. They make attempts at the research of the structure of an atom on a theoretical level. So far, they do not speak about the structure of smaller units, electrons, and these also have even greater energy vibrations than the vibrations of an atom, and the frequency of these vibrations determines the structure of an atom. The whole environment you have named as inanimate is also animate. Only the life of this, according to your inanimate nature, possesses the energy vibrations of a very low and crude mode. And every single particle is in motion, in vibration, and in revolution. Every single particle, even the smallest one, of whatever solid substance seen to your material eyesight it might be, such as the rocks of the biggest mountains or the hardest steel, is also an animate substance. Only the motion, vibration of these component particles of this animate substance is of a very low frequency. Therefore, you do not see them. That is why you take such objects of the environment seen by your own eyes to be of an inanimate nature. Neither can you see the vibrations of a very high frequency. Therefore, you cannot see me in my present and real form. Neither can you see angels, your guardian seraphim, who are even by your side and do serve you. Nor can you see many other spirits that are higher than the seraphim, and who do really serve you with their devotion to Creator of the creation and the emanator and center of all these energy vibrations, whom you have named God. It is both true and untrue. God is all-embracing and omnipresent. He has no definite form and appearance. He is the first great and eternal emanator and upholder of all the supreme vibrations and the source and center of the universal consciousness. He is the only one who is all-perceiving and omniscient, and who sees everywhere the whole beginning from the end, throughout eternity, in the past and in the future. And while being such, to you who are of the lowest mode of vibrations, and who have disclosed only the very initial and the simplest understanding of his universal consciousness, he is still a person and personality that you can commune with, even as if with the most beloved person, who is the source of love himself. He is the source and center of love for the whole creation. Chapter 6 The concept of God to me as a child who was searching for answers within himself. When I was in your very lowest material form, in the human flesh, And when my human consciousness was also on the very lowest mortal level, I was also unable to perceive who was Yahweh, Yahweh, as the Jews were calling the God of Israel, the Father of Israel. I, even as a child, could not understand why there was some higher power that was called the Father of Israel, and who had to be feared because he would punish one if that one did not obey him. How could a loving father punish his children, while even a human loving father would try to find a way to reach the mind of his child so that the child would understand his teaching and explanation, and he would not resort to punishing the child right away if the child did not understand and did something not the way the earthly father was asking him to do. It was beyond my understanding that such a supreme power could behave worse than an earthly father, and an unwise father that, to demand a sacrifice of live lambs or other animals or birds so that man would receive a reward from it. All this seemed to my mind that this supreme power that was even called the Father of Israel had less wisdom than earthly parents had, for they did not demand that their children kill any animals to make their parents love them. And when such thoughts were permanently arising in my mind, I had nobody at hand whom I could ask. Why was God so relentless? Why was he revengeful? Why had he to be feared and obeyed all the time? Why could not I commune with him directly, but rather through rabbis? My mind could not find convincing answers, so the arguments remained solid, and there remained nothing else to my mind but to talk with itself. And that type of directing my view to my own inner self would bring me ever growing satisfaction, because surprisingly to myself, I felt I began to find some answers. And those answers were so convincing to me that I started to ever more relish this conversation with my own self. And why should not my mind follow those responses that it was receiving, even though being unable to understand how those answers were generated in it? However, I began to trust ever more those responses, that God did not really punish anyone and did not make anyone suffer. He loved and shone light, and it was the people, due to the fears passed over to them by their ancestors, that were afraid of that light, for they did not know that the questions I was posing to myself they could also pose to themselves, and they might also receive those responses that would soothe them and explain to them in what way they could cease being afraid of God, that He would punish them each time, even though being unable to know the source of those thoughts of mine that were piercing my mind deeper and stronger to dominate it, I started trusting them ever more. However, I could not talk frankly about it with anyone else, for nobody wanted either to understand it or at least to talk about my mere hints that God loved no less than an earthly father did, and that he did not punish anyone more than an earthly father would. Thus I had to address these same questions to myself, and discuss them with myself further on, and from my very early age. But as my own thoughts were becoming more different from the ones dominant in my environment, people would get irritated very easily if I told them something contrary to what they had been taught by the so-called scripture of their parents, grandparents, and all the other ancestor generations. Due to this fact, my environment by no means could render me any assistance in finding answers to new questions ever coming to my mind.